This summer, my mother moved out of the home where she'd lived for 46 years. It was the home where I grew up, the bedroom where I wrestled with my brother, the garden where I learnt to play football, and it was where my father saw out the last years of his life before he passed away. For the 10 years since, it was where Mum lived alone. When she decided it was time to move out, we found her a bungalow with a garden where she could enjoy summers, and then set about packing up 46 years of life. But most of the things we packed away didn't belong to Mum, they were Dad's. Newspaper cuttings from his time as a journalist, cameras and lenses from his retirement hobby as a photographer, first edition books he collected in hope of future value. It was a difficult experience to look through it all, the remains of the life of a man who would look out the window and wonder what lies beyond. It is a wonder I share. Going through all these forgotten things left me with one simple thought: you can't take it with you. In this age of consumerism, where shiny things are dangled in front of our faces, where these things are delivered almost instantly to our doorstep, we are gripped with the disease of obtaining stuff. Few of us can claim to be free of this affliction, and I am not among those few. But what of these things when we are gone? They lay in boxes pushed to the back of a cupboard. They collect dust in a room somewhere, waiting for someone to find it and wonder what promises were made when they were purchased, and whether these promises were ever fulfilled. When, like my father, I lay on my deathbed, will I care what is in my cupboards? The things we accumulate are not important. It's what we do with them that matters. The memories we create. And always, always, I have found the best memories come when there is the greater challenge. So this summer, when finally I have time for an adventure, I'll adventure as far as I have time for. I'll head east, past the mountains of the Alps where I've already explored, into Slovenia, and then south, to challenge myself to travel further than I've ever been before. Join me as I commit myself to the journey, to see what memories I can build, in memory of my father, who once stood by a window and wondered, what lies beyond? I had made my decision. Now I had to deal with it. 1,000 miles transit to the border between Austria and Slovenia. I took the Eurotunnel to France and steeled myself to endure several days of motorway travel. I was advised to avoid these highways and visit interesting cities along the way. But this journey had a mission: get as far and remote as I can in just a few weeks of holiday. And when I have a plan, I'm not easily deterred. Some say I'm determined. Others say I'm stubborn. I don't know which it is. I just know that once the decision was made, I would get it done. I went country collecting, heading through France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, and finally Austria. In Germany, I dropped my GoPro on the motorway, where it was flattened by a truck. I had bought a proper camera for this trip, in memory of Dad, and now it seemed like a nudge from beyond, a reason to rely on the camera he would have used to see the world through his eyes. I crossed into Slovenia and headed to the center of the country, where I finally allowed myself to leave the motorway behind and go off-road. After miles and miles of deafening motorway, I found the silence of the forest somehow louder. 1,000 voices whispering something you can't quite make out. In A Walk in the Woods, Bill Bryson writes that woods are not like other spaces. They make you feel small, like a child lost in a crowd of strange legs. I was on the Trans-Euro Trail, also known as the TET, a route planned by volunteers that travels all over Europe's off-road paths, on every type of path you can imagine. And what a treat this Slovenian TET was. Smooth, easy gravel paths that curved endlessly through the trees. I just had to look down at my GPS and see I was still happily trundling along this pink line and allow my mind to wander. I found that I didn't want the day to end and rode long into the evening, eventually finding a campsite that I had all to myself.
Yesterday, oh my God. Yesterday I rode for 11 hours. Where am I?
I stayed by a stream and there's just so much moisture in the air. It's funny, me running around with a camera everywhere now, getting my face up to it, looking through the viewfinder. Dad would drive us mental on holidays with this, just endlessly stopping and looking at this thing that only he can see, only he can notice. We're just sort of like, what? What are you even looking at? Let's go get ice cream. And he's just oblivious. He can't hear us. He sees something that we don't. What a place. A river runs along the border of Slovenia and Croatia. a river unlike any I've seen before. It is said the river's source was a mystery to the ancient Romans, but in later years a Croatian travel writer called Dragutin Hirsch journeyed to the source and captured it in words. He wrote, "When you look from hill to hill, there are no settlements to be seen, not a soul in sight, nowhere a human voice. The ear can distinguish only the sound of the dearly flowing water. A man would leave the world, if that were possible, and move here to live a blessed and peaceful life." I felt as if I could have passed a lifetime just looking at the emerald green water. Finally, I pulled myself away and continued across the border into Croatia. The trail took me through the Croatian forest before emerging out the trees and revealing the far-off Adriatic coast in all its splendor. One of my favorite things about following the Tet is not knowing what is coming up ahead. When it takes me down steep rocks, I accept the challenge. When it lifts the curtain on a view like this, I bask in the beauty. I am at the mercy of the trail, whether good or bad, and follow it like a pilgrim undertaking a sacred journey. The temperature had been slowly creeping higher. In my excitement to ride and my eagerness to capture footage, I had ignored the heat and pushed on through, but by mid-afternoon, it all caught up to me. The heat is really hitting me today. Yesterday I wasn't bothered by it, but today I am. It's saying 30 degrees. I might need a rest day. Hey, this is what happens. It's important you see this, I think. I mean, look, I'm on an awesome bike on awesome trails in an awesome country. Everything's working fine. You know, I don't have much to complain about. But right now, I could do with it just not being on the bike. Let's go. It took me a while to head down out the trail and onto a road. But when I did, I headed to the nearest hotel I could find. And by the time I arrived, a storm threatened to break. I hid myself away in my hotel room and hoped a good night's sleep would bring me back to life. Every morning there's that moment when you've got everything packed away and it's time to put the shoes on. It's like putting your feet into two black holes. And you know, when you do, that you are not coming out of them for at least 9 hours. Dear God. I welcomed the gathering clouds as they spread across the sky, softening the sun's gaze and easing the heat. For days I had journeyed beneath the shelter of the forests of Slovenia and Croatia, but here, on the 6th day, The land unfolded before me, and in the distance mountains whispered an invitation. To gaze upon such a vast expanse is to glimpse the world as it once may have been. Wild, untamed, touched only lightly by human hands. I come from London, where lines of houses stretch endlessly and roads weave like veins across the city's body. From above, I've often looked down from a plane and thought, what have we done? Where once we built 4 walls to shelter ourselves from the dangers of the night, now we can't stop. Each building higher, each wall longer, and the roads across the city are now choked with cars. Perhaps this is why I choose to ride out to such places, in search of a feeling from generations ago, now lost, my motorcycle like a horse galloping across the land. I stop to gather footage as though foraging for sustenance, storing these moments like provisions in my bags to carry home. Capturing these videos feels like gathering treasure, precious fragments of a journey that might otherwise slip away. I cherish the chance to relive them with you, even if only through the glow of a computer screen. And what do you make of this, dear viewer? Watching this silly man play out his silly fantasy? Is it just a passing curiosity, or does something deeper stir within you? Perhaps, like me, you wonder what lies beyond the edges of the world you know. Perhaps, like me, you share that desire to leave the mundane behind, to seek out the untamed, to discover what lies beyond.
I now know exactly what to do when you move.
Okay, what do you do when you move?
You get rid of everything.
Yeah.
Everything. No matter what. You went a long way.
Yes.
I can't believe that you do these things. I mean, Dad would be astonished, absolutely astonished. He'd be petrified. He'd be constantly, well, I'm not sure he'd be emailing you, but he'd be telling me to email you or what have you. Don't be careful of this, don't do that, be careful of the other. Safety was his thing.
Travelling through Croatia and Bosnia means coming face to face with our potential for destruction. Whether it's the warning that stepping off the path can be fatal, or an abandoned war machine left to rust as a haunting symbol of devastation. There is no escaping the sense that you are in a place that has suffered and still bears the scars. I am reminded of the fragility of life, knowing that death here once came suddenly, without warning. But this fragility doesn't have to be feared. It is a reminder that what we have is fleeting, and therefore precious. Like the sun dipping below the horizon, shimmering for just a moment before fading away, our time here is brief. Too often we get caught up in what has happened or what might happen and forget that we are here right now. I think that is why I am so drawn to being on a motorbike. It's the closest I get to being fully in the present. When I watch these videos back, I'm amazed at how far I ride and how quickly the miles pass by. Time seems to vanish when I am so completely immersed in each moment. A year ago, I set off to Monaco on my first off-road adventure, and it was then that I fell in love with the idea of embracing the unknown. A few months later, I traveled to Spain in winter, learning that if you push through the difficulties, you can find something truly special. And now, on the 7th day of this journey, I found myself deep in Bosnia, where the trail led me into a forest that seemed to rise endlessly, the air growing cooler as I climbed. Eventually, I emerged from the trees and made my way to a small village to rest and prepare for whatever lay ahead in Bosnia's unknown. What on earth? Why is there smoke? Onwards towards where the explosion came from. I'm trying to work out if this is the remotest place I've been. I was fast approaching a personal milestone, the furthest I'd ever travelled from home on a motorbike. Dad would be horrified with the way that I'm treating these lenses. He'd never come to a place like this. At least not the man that I knew. When I knew him, bear in mind he had me when he was 50. The man that I knew was cautious. He worried a lot. Worried about what could happen. My natural tendency was to, as you can see, go and explore and see what happens. And I imagine that stressed him out. quite something to be out here. You leave the hotel or the campsite and you get on the road, and for a while you're just, okay, this is fine, and then things get more remote and you get more distant and you see less traffic, and then suddenly you're in it. You're in it and you're alone, and you're thinking, I should be careful here, because if I was to fall, no one's coming. But who knows what lies ahead? There are some that argue against the idea of a trans-Euro trail, claiming that when everyone follows the same path, the path becomes overcrowded. But my experience has been quite the opposite. The trail, for me, has been a place of solitude, but all it takes is switching off the engine to be reminded that you are alone in a foreign land. If you linger long enough, you begin to feel as though you're not just passing through, but becoming a part of the very world into which you've stepped.
Are they too hot?
Ukraine.
UK. No, UK. London, England.
English.
English. Yeah. Huh? Yeah. All the way. Yeah.
Društvo. Kamo još?
Yeah.
Kamo još?
Yeah. All the way. No, one.
Sam.
One. Yeah.
I wonder what a man like that makes of a traveller like me. Would he remember me when he returned to his family later that day? Would he tell his wife that a biker from England passed today? Or would I be forgotten? Does he ever dream of taking the journey himself? Or is he content to simply pass each day, tending to his flock and working the land? And what a land! In London, I only have a pocket of space squeezed between other pockets of space, filled with the things I think I need, things that will one day sit on a shelf and gather dust. But here, in Bosnia, I moved through a different kind of space, and everything I carried had a purpose. would he have done what I'm doing, these kinds of things, these kinds of trips?
He might have done anyway, if he'd been given the opportunities and times had been different, because the times were different.
Yeah.
We didn't travel in the same way as people travel now. It was an adventure just to cross the English Channel. Travel wasn't as easy in those days, and at one time you couldn't take more than £25 out of the country anyway.
You couldn't have a bank card with you.
You bought traveller's checks in those days. You didn't have credit cards and things. But a lot of those Eastern European countries were communist.
Yeah.
So you didn't travel in communist countries because it was more difficult, because you could be taken away by the secret police and things.
Everything was catching up to me. The night before, I lay in my tent with my head pounding, a combination of long hours on the trail and the rising heat. It was fine up in the mountains, but I had come down to a lake where it was warmer. In the morning, I felt better and was able to take in my surroundings. I'd only ever heard the name Bosnia through talk of war. I'd never known that the country was this beautiful. I looked at the trail that lay ahead and saw it took me towards Mostar, where there was talk of 40-degree heat. I decided to skip this city and take a shortcut on roads and perhaps find out what this stretch of water might look like up close. I welcomed the opportunity to be on tarmac, where I could move faster and let the wind cool me down. Away from the difficult trails, I could allow my thoughts to wander. And I got to thinking, what a time that we live in, where I'm able to do what I'm doing. And why am I able to do this? Some time ago, people carved a path through this untamed mountain. Later, others followed it, crossing the landscape until it became a road. Many years later, the internal combustion engine was invented. Then later still, a Japanese company was formed, and several iterations down the line, the Honda CRF 300 Rally was designed, built, and sent across the ocean. In London, I bought one. It is on the achievements of others that I am able to weave this path down this mountain. It is because of others that I am able to capture this footage and share it with you. It is quite something to be doing what I'm doing. But I didn't feel it. I just felt hot and tired and lonely. I needed a rest. I had come too far, too quickly, and I had stopped seeing. Each road blurred into the next, each view a mirror of the one before it. Sometimes you just need to get off the bike. By midday, as the temperature reached 37 degrees, I pulled into a campsite by that body of water and rested. I felt like a new man, and I was excited. The trail lay just 10 kilometers away, and after I rejoined it, I would be heading into the mountains and back into the wilderness. Looks good, eh? The remote landscape offered a stillness, and in that quiet I found a clarity of thought otherwise lost in the noise of a city. I got to thinking about how me and Dad would clash, and how he was quick to anger. However, for me, I feel because I chose to not be quick to anger, it made me very calm, very good with children. That's why I went into teaching. But it also means you're able to push over easily as well, because you won't react, you know? And I think that's true for me when I was younger. You repress these feelings of anger, but what else do you keep in? It took me a long time to realize that. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Go away! Oh, F those guys. You okay? Yeah, all good, all good. No, having a break, yeah. In the heart of this wilderness, the traffic began to increase, and soon I came across this village that had become a popular tourist destination. It was jarring to be around all these people after being so remote only a moment before. I decided to press on.
From the UK. I go...
Jest bio.
This way, no.
Lukomir.
This way.
Lukomir. Nisi bio Lukomir, nisi. Lukomir. Lukomir.
Look a bit, no.
Ne razumije. Lukomir.
I don't understand. What did you say?
Ne razumijem.
Good to meet you.
Je, spava.
Later.
Šuma.
Yeah.
Spava.
Yeah.
Rećaj.
Yeah. Okay.
What was this land I was in? Each time I stopped to rest, a farmer and his flock would appear, their faces weathered from countless days out in the sun, their smiles warm, their interest genuine. Who knows what they have seen in their time? I wished I could ask them. It was day 10, though it didn't feel it. Time here didn't pass, it paused, suspended in the stillness of this place. A single day means nothing to a land like this. The trees, the stones, they measure time in centuries, not hours. They shift slowly, and my presence here feels like a brief disturbance, a ripple in an ancient pond. Passing through, I'm struck by an urge to leave no trace, to slip away unnoticed. They were here long before my engine broke the silence, and they will remain long after I am gone. Onwards, I pressed. The trail took me out from the wilderness and towards Sarajevo, where the temperature again rose beyond 35 degrees, beyond what I could stand. In London, I filtered between traffic to save time. Here, I did so simply to have some wind flow in an attempt to stay cool. I was keen to explore this city, but decided I'd return in the future to do so. This was not that kind of adventure. I had fallen in love with the remoteness of the land, and I wanted more. I was nearing the end of the Bosnian trail, and Montenegro lay ahead. I've been wondering what draws me to these places. I knew I had to really go far again. And there's no sense to it. I would be perfectly happy roaming the whole of France off-road trails because they are amazing. But I have to come here to Bosnia. When people said it was a very remote feeling, I knew I wanted that. I'm trying to work out what the breakdown is of fun to suffering on trips like these. But maybe it's not about the fun. Maybe it's about something more. I met Faris at that lakeside campsite. He must have been 20-something. He was full of hope, you know? He was full of hope for the future of his family's campsite, full of hope for the future of his country. And he had this smile on his face when I said, I didn't realize Bosnia was like this, you know? And he said, yeah, I get that a lot. And he was proud. And it gives you perspective, you know? Whatever you've got, be proud of it. I tell children at school, you know, take pride in your work. Take pride in your work. Do some work that you'd want to show your parents at the end of the day. This line that you're drawing under your date and your learning objective, this line here, it matters. Make it straight. Start the page off in the right way. Sometimes when I say these kinds of things to children, you know, I realize that I'm saying them to myself. Start the day off in the right way. Take pride in what you do. Who'd had known a year ago when I got this bike that I would have done 10,000 miles on it. I'm proud of that. Let's go. I had reached the end of Bosnia as a storm threatened to break, its distant rumbles echoing across the hills. I hurried to the border and crossed into Montenegro, stopping at the first place I found to shelter for the night. I had been told that Montenegro would be the most beautiful, but warned it would also be the most challenging. I was ready to discover what lies beyond.
I'm quite jealous of you seeing some of these places that, I would like to visit, but not the way you're doing it. One thing I do wish that Dad and I had done was literally just take off, as you're doing anyway, and just go, and then stop somewhere if we fancied to stop. As Dad always liked to know where we were going to be sleeping that night. When he was on holiday, he would go out in the late afternoon, early evening, when the light was the best light, to get things that were picturesque or what have you. And he took some wonderful pictures.
They call that the golden hour.
Is that what they say?
Sometimes I arrive somewhere so full of the day's adventure that I'm unable to take in anything more. I only have energy to unpack my bags, wash some clothes, find food, and rest. And then, the next morning, I wake early before the world stirs. And in the soft morning light, I finally see where I've landed. And sometimes, by pure chance, it's somewhere extraordinary. I was in the Tara Canyon, the deepest canyon in Europe and second deepest in the world after the Grand Canyon. It spans for 51 miles and plunges to depths of up to 1,300 meters. The river that carves its way through the canyon holds pristine water that locals describe as being as clean and clear as a tear. For this reason, it is now known as the Tear of Europe. I've seen many things from the seat of a motorbike. In the Alps, I've ridden to altitude so high the stone has turned dark through the relentless grind of wind and ice. In Spain, I've passed through desert landscapes unlike anything else in the continent. In France, I've passed through endless fields of wheat, their golden stalks swaying gently as tractors carve patterns into the earth. But I've never come across anything quite like Montenegro before. This rugged, ever-changing land held surprises around every corner. I had turned a corner and seen what was easily the steepest, most rocky trail I'd come across so far, and then, right on cue, this man appeared behind. Like me, he was riding solo across many countries, and like me, he was following the trail blindly with no idea what lay ahead. I liked him immediately. We agreed to tackle this tricky section together and soon realized we had one more thing in common. We both had no idea what we were doing. Our struggles had bonded us, and we celebrated wildly. Finally, I asked his name. It was Martin. He came from Holland on his 1997 Africa twin. He had organised an extended break from work and was using the time to see if he can get all the way to Turkey. The bike he rode was comically overloaded, with heavy panniers and a huge duffel bag. I would later discover that in this luggage he brought all manner of items along with him. A fishing rod, a hammock and a tent, a chair, diving goggles with a snorkel. It was, quite frankly, ridiculous. Martin was my kind of guy. In our struggles in this tricky section of the trail, I did something I hadn't done since my very first day riding off-road. I turned around. I'd like to think that without Martin I would have conquered this section, but something about dropping the bike and having him watch me struggle depleted all my confidence. And when it became clear that he wasn't getting through on his heavier bike, I wanted to stay with him and ride together. So we went around and rejoined the Tet by road. And this road took us into the Dermator National Park. It felt good to ride with someone after so much time alone. Somehow we had managed to meet just as we entered the most incredible landscape I had encountered yet. When surrounded by such overwhelming beauty, the details can blur together, each breathtaking view becoming part of a larger, ungraspable whole. But then I stopped alongside Martin and saw the huge grin spread across his face. In that moment, I was reminded that what we were witnessing wasn't just beautiful, it was something truly special.
Ovo je slovačka zastava, slovačka. Prvo smo puštili slovačku, a posljednja je češka.
There is something special about meeting a fellow traveller out on the trail. Perhaps it's the spontaneity of it, the unplanned fortune where time and place come together. Perhaps it's that after days of living alone inside your helmet, you're simply more open to making a friend. We had met by chance and were now bound together by the path ahead. And if the previous day's exploits were anything to go by, we were going to need each other to get through Montenegro's treacherous paths. This is rough. This is rough. It's too hard. Is he still coming? Oh my God, he's a hero.
Gas it, right?
Oh my God, he's doing it. What a boss. The trails were relentless in their difficulty, and soon Martin noticed the frame on his panniers was beginning to bend. We decided to find a way out of these trails, and I wondered if this was perhaps as far as I was willing to go. Martin's journey was heading further south and would now need to stay on the road. We would be going our separate paths, and losing his company meant I decided to mark this as my turning point and begin the journey homeward. I told him that even though we rode together for just a day, he had become a highlight of my trip and was part of the story now. I wished him well on his road to Turkey and promised to stay in touch. I was alone again. My route home would take me out these mountains and up along the coast, but I wasn't quite ready to leave this remote land yet. I wanted to return to the wilderness just one more time, so I found a hotel nearby and the next morning tracked a path back to the Dermator National Park. Something told me there was more there to see. When I was younger, I lived a bit of a reclusive life. I was a bit socially anxious. And every summer when the chance came to go on some sort of, toured teenager group summer trip, I opted not to. I was afraid. Anyway, if you're Jewish, as I am, although I'm not really a practicing Jew, but if you're a Jew and you haven't been to Israel, at a certain age, you're allowed to go on what they call a birthright trip. And this is where they pay for you to go to Israel and tour around. And it was amazing. I decided I would do it. I did it. And over 10 days, I met all kinds of people. I saw all kinds of places. Anyway, when I came back, I had been through something. I remember my father came to pick me up. I believe it was from Wembley Park Station. And he was walking down the road. And he saw me and I just had the biggest smile. You know, me and my father didn't really express our feelings too much. We didn't really bond in that way, but that moment we sort of shook hands and had a hug, and he just looked so pleased for me. He could see it on my face. I wonder if this is what my father saw that day. The joy of discovery, the power of stepping outside of fear, the magic of finding something that moves you so deeply it stays with you forever. I've carried that moment for a long time, and to share it with you is to relive it. 1 minute you're a fearless adventurer traversing the land, and the next you're just a boy who misses his father. Perhaps that's what I'm searching for. A place so extraordinary, it reminds me of what's important. A place like Montenegro. Before I set off on my trip, my friend Adam introduced me via WhatsApp to Steve, an Englishman living in Montenegro. Steve said I was welcome to pop by, but his place was off from the trails I planned to take. Then Adam told me a story. When my bike was stolen, Steve baked a banoffee pie and brought it round to cheer me up. That's the kind of guy he is. Go visit him. So I did. Steve had bought this plot of land online a year ago without even seeing it, and had built a life from the ground up. He shared it with his cat, his dog, his chickens that laid fresh eggs each morning, and his beehive that provided golden honey. His world was one of craft and creation. Every corner of his land held evidence of his hands at work. A chicken coop, a pizza oven, a boxing bag fashioned from old tires. At the start of this film, I spoke about how possessions aren't what matter most, about how we can't take them with us when we're gone. But being with Steve made me reconsider. Perhaps the things we build, those shaped with care and purpose, become more than just objects. They become a testament to the time we pour into them. Steve even had a way of preserving the people he meets. He showed me a book where he keeps a Polaroid of each visitor to his home, alongside a handwritten note from them. I was delighted that I listened to Adam and came to visit. All the places that I've stayed on this trip, the hotels and the campsites, I think Steve's van might be the most comfortable.
No worries.
Leaving that pocket of peace wasn't easy, but eventually I said goodbye to Steve and braced myself for the long road home. My plan was to trace the Croatian coast and perhaps explore the nearby adventure country track. But as soon as I reached the coast, the plan unraveled. The temperature surged, relentless, and my phone displayed a heat warning as if echoing my own discomfort. All I could think about was reaching the Alps, climbing higher, and escaping this furnace of a landscape. But when I reached the Alps, word came of a heat wave sweeping across Europe, leaving me with only one option: heading north and home. I could tell you many things about the journey home. I could talk about the Adriatic coast, shimmering like liquid silver, stretching endlessly as I curved through coastal towns. Or I could tell you about the jarring contrast of Austria's pristine order after the raw, untamed beauty of Bosnia and Montenegro. I might even mention how I caught up with a friend in Germany and shared a coffee. Simon had invited me onto his Real Riders podcast back when I'd only made a handful of videos. Hearing him say my work might actually have some quality was quietly validating. Yet, the true story lies elsewhere. On the road with nothing but the drone of the engine and the confines of a helmet, I found clarity. In past journeys, I've spoken of the toll the miles take, grinding you down until you return home unrecognizable to yourself. But this time, the solitude sharpened my senses. With enough time to think, distractions fall away, leaving only the unvarnished truth. And truth has a way of finding you, whether you're ready for it or not. Often I think that when I write these words for you, I am in fact writing them for me. As a reminder, as reminders are needed, that we settle too easily into these comfortable routines, filling our days with trivial distractions, while the path ahead, the one worth taking, remains untouched. And if there is something in the way, sometimes the only way is through. I realize now that we never truly discover what lies beyond. To say I found it would be to fool myself into thinking there's an ending. But the truth is, the path never ends. There's no grand conclusion waiting, no final prize to claim. For me, the meaning isn't in arriving somewhere, it is in the act of moving forward, despite not knowing what's ahead. And so, I'll keep moving, not because I need to reach somewhere, but because there's more life to live, more stories to tell, and more paths yet to take. So there it is. There's my little film. I hope you were able to take something from it. I know I learned a lot about myself in making it, and as always, it took twice as long as I had planned for it to take. You know, the best part of making and sharing these videos with you is the engagement that I get afterwards, the YouTube comments, and there's a theme in them, I've noticed. There's one type of comment which keeps on coming up, and it's the comment that these videos have inspired you to get out there and do something that you might otherwise have not, and even have inspired you to maybe go and make your own video, which I just love. And it's got me thinking about what's next, because right now it's winter and there's not much available in terms of trips that I can take, and there will be more trips coming, and I've got some exciting plans for that because, as I say, there are more stories to tell and there are more paths yet to take. But while I have this time now, I think I have an opportunity to try something new, because the idea of community is something that really appeals to me and I want to develop one. So I'm launching a Patreon. Now on that Patreon will be the chance for us as a community to talk to each other in a space, to discuss, I don't know, my latest video, to share great videos that we found online and want to talk about, but also to give you a space where you can put forward ideas you're working on, or even videos that you've begun to make, and get some feedback from all of us. Because I think often we're starved for feedback. So that's one thing that I'd like to put on there. Of course, I'll be able to put on some behind the scenes footage of things that I've done that you won't see on the YouTube. But also, I'm still working out how exactly to do the membership and the tiers. This is all new to me. But I'd also like to give the option for one-to-one direct coaching with me, to give you a chance to get on a call online with someone and get support in any aspect of your endeavor, of your adventure, your trip. That might be where to go on your trip. That might be what gear to take with you. It also might be what's the best way to capture the footage on the trip that won't get in the way of having fun on the journey. And most importantly, how to edit and craft your footage into a story. Now, I know there's lots of you out there that have captured footage and it's now just sitting on a hard drive somewhere and not being used. And it's a hard thing to get started, isn't it? But I think I can help. In fact, I know I can help. You know, I've been teaching for 16 years now in a primary school, and over that time, I feel like I've developed an understanding of how best to share information in a way that's easy to understand. I'm also a very patient guy, and I'm a very encouraging person. So I'd like to bring these skills now into what I'm doing. So if you're interested, there will be a link at the bottom of this video in the description. And that link currently will take you to a website that I've just made. That will be my landing page for now until I've got my Patreon ready to launch, which won't be long. But for the time being, I'd like to know of your interest. So pop over to that page, sign up your email, and that A, will tell me just how many people are interested in this, and that will help me to understand if this is worthwhile. And B, means that when I do launch soon, I'll be able to ping you an email and tell you that it's good to go, and to give you a chance to sign up and join in. Yeah, I'm really excited by this. I'm excited by what this could lead to. So if you're interested, pop over and I'll see you there.